All right, so what I'm going to do in this video is walk through the rest of game turn 2, and I do apologize for the glare. It's just no way to improve the lighting in this particular room than to just deal with this. But here's what we're going to do. It is the German movement phase, and here is what I've done with my reinforcements and why. Now again, this is not necessarily optimal play. This is just how I've decided to play and why. I've decided to leave the garrison unit alone right here. Not so near as to invite an attack, far enough away that it's going to divert from the beachhead and perhaps dilute any main effort in this direction. I double-checked the rules, and there's no restrictions on 5th Army moving into the 8th Army sector. The rules only restrict 8th Army units moving into the 5th Army sector, and that's not going to happen until much later in the game, so we don't need to worry about that. So for that reason, I'm going to keep 16th Panzer's battalion here. I'm going to keep them moving, again, with the same principle, except this is a more defensible unit. So substantial resources would have to be diverted to attack this particular unit. I moved up one of the garrison pieces here just to guard what I feel is an important bridge over this river here. And because there's not a lot of opportunity for lateral movement between this sector and this sector. So I parked him here just to kind of as a reserve for that guy. I went ahead and moved the units that were located in Hex 2817. I moved them to this knoll because their zone of control will guard over this area here and produce a Zoc bond with the 29th Panzer Grenadiers, who I did bring into this river basin where they are in open terrain and vulnerable to tanks, except that the river is going to protect them and give them some guardian ability against those tank shifts. So I don't think the tank shifts work even with the bridge. I'm pretty sure of that. Move their artillery back to here, and 16 Panzer's artillery got them within range to support them defensively. Move the core artillery here, and I forgot to mark. Both of those have moved more than one hex, so they actually should be marked with a disruption marker. Basically, those are going to go away automatically at the end of the turn because they're not in an enemy Zoc, but the point is they cannot provide any artillery support while so marked. And I also forgot to mark one of them here. So that's what I've done down in this sector. I went ahead and moved the stronger tank battalion into position to join with the guys in Battaglia. I think I'm saying that right. Battaglia, something like that is Italian. They're going to, sorry, it's terrible. I'm not racist, I'm just, anyways. Okay, so we're going to take these guys, and they got enough attack factors to attack this stack, get 1-to-1 odds. We'll use the 10th Flieger Corps, and we'll use the 10th Panzer artillery here to support that attack. So we're going to get, it's going to be 1-to-1 odds. We're going to get a shift, so 2-to-1 odds. We won't get a tank shift. We'll get a shift here, 3-to-1, and then 4-to-1, and there's no shifts available for the defender. So again, elite, the Flieger Corps, air support, and the divisional artillery will give us those shifts. So we'll get a nice attack on this particular stack here, force them back, and it won't relieve all of the pressure on the city, the attack on Battaglia, but it will it will make it more difficult for the Allies to continue that assault in the upcoming turn. I took the, what do you call them, the Fallschirmjägers that were parked down in Eboli, which again, I still feel like that sounds like a disease. Anyways, I moved them with trucks up here to join with the 16th Panzer units, and that just tightens up the defense up here in the north. They're too far away for a Zoc bond, but we're trying to guard over the passage through the mountains here and the passage through the mountains here. We're watching those two passes with that one stack. Went ahead and moved the, I'd love to get these guys out of here, but I feel that for now having them here is probably more important than withdrawing them. I'm tempted to pull them out anyways and just get them moving because I feel like they're going to be more important down here. The commandos potentially could attack that stack, get 1-to-1 odds to So just because there is that potential for the commandos launching an attack, I'm just going to keep them there for one more turn before pulling them out. Brought in the Hermann Goering units here to block the Rangers and perhaps set up some attacks on them later on down the road. I moved the garrison unit back for safety and then put the Goering artillery division in that particular town there. So those are our movements for now. And so the only combat that we're going to have is that one there. So we'll go ahead and move this down, and we're going to do a resolution of the combat next. All right, we are ready to move on to the combat phase. Now, we only have one combat here in the German half of turn 2, and that is going to be the attack that's going to involve the 2nd of the 64th of the 16th Panzer, and both tank battalions from 16th Panzer. We have a total of 10 factors in offense and 5, 7, and 9 factors in defense in the stack here, south of Battipaglia. We've got the 10th Flieger Corps supporting the attack. For the Germans, there's no air support to help out the Allies. The only thing, actually, they don't even have the Commonwealth doesn't even have their artillery in play yet. We're also going to support with 16th Panzer's organic ASU, or artillery shooting unit. ASU is an artillery support unit, but I can never remember quite what it is. Anyways, there you go. Artillery shot will give us that next little boost to get us into the juicy 4-to-1 column here on the CRT. It's a 1-to-1 shot. We have elite units involved in the attack, so that's going to bring us up to 2-to-1. We don't get the tank shift because both sides have tanks, and look at the superscript 3 and the superscript 3. They're equivalent, basically. If this was a 4 or if this was a 2 superscript, in such a case like that, the Germans would get the tank shift, or vice versa. But since the tank values are equal, nobody gets the column shift. So 2-to-1 because of elite, 3-to-1 because of the Flieger Corps air support, and the organic artillery punch it up to 4-to-1. So let's, without further ado, roll this heifer out. So here we go. And 4 isn't exactly what we wanted there, but it'll do. A1D1 is not one of the results that will cause the opponent to pick the step loss. So Allies are going to take a hit. Let's go ahead and take it off of this guy. I think that's the best move, is to kill the 1-step unit. And so both divisions have lost their independent battalion, I should say. Okay, and they're going to have to retreat. Now, what do we do with... normally I'd say let's get rid of, the infantry step. However, we want that elite step to hold on to the town. So I'm going to have to make the tough decision to either kill off this guy or reduce the tank. I think that's probably the best move, is go ahead and reduce him. That leaves us with 2 tank units still in play. It's an A1D1 result, so the defenders have to do a 2-hex retreat. It's not worth trying to do a determined defense, so we'll go ahead and retreat back to beachhead and mark them with a disrupted marker. Oops. So they are disrupted. For the advance, I've got a 2-hex advance here for the Germans, and it would be tempting to go ahead and do a follow-on attack if this was a weaker stack, but that would be a really risky play to go after them. So I'm going to go ahead and play it safe. We're going to take 16 Panzer, just bring it into that stack, bringing that up to full support. Now, what we've done there is we've created a ZOC that's going to stretch all the way like so, all the way around it. These guys here are projecting a ZOC here. So basically there's a row of ZOCs going like this all the way around. So it's going to prevent the Allies from getting into the backfield, if we can use a football term there. So that's going to be the end of that. These guys are marked as used, and return to the weather display. They've already been marked as fired. And that's it. At this point, I usually just go ahead and begin to write all of my markers here, all my stacks that are canted. Go ahead and write them. But what we can actually do while we're doing that is go down to the recovery phase. We'll get rid of our disrupted units. We're going to rally, in other words, and we're going to remove the truck marker from the Fallschirmjägers here. So we'll go ahead and pull him off, put that back in play, get that out of there, get that out of there. Basically, all the German disrupted are back in business, back to full capability. And that is that. Okay, we are all set to end the turn. Come down here. We don't really need to worry about supply because there's no obvious supply issues at this point. The supply sources for the Germans are the map edges. For the Allies, it's the beachheads. And basically, I think you have 5 hexes to trace to a road that goes back to a source. None of those are imperiled at the present, so we don't even need to worry about that. And so we don't have to worry about isolation, attrition, or any of that stuff. But we can go ahead and flip our ASU for the expenditure of a supply point. So let's go ahead and use that. So we have actually spent both of our supply points that we got at the beginning of the turn for the Germans in order to replenish the artillery. I wanted to do that because that leaves us with 2 artillery to be able to provide determined defenses if we should need one in both that location and then that location during the Allied half of the turn. If I don't use it during the Allied turn, well, then they're already ready for action in the next German turn. But that will end the German half of turn 2. So we'll go ahead and mark the phase marker over, bring it back up to here to the initial phase for the Allies, and mark the turn marker for showing that it's the Allied player's turn. And we'll move on to the Allied player half of the turn. All right, so now the Allied half of turn 2. And what we're going to go ahead and do here is place our reinforcements. There is no replacements to use, and we can flip ASUs if we should need to do that this time. However, we don't have that situation applying to us, so this is going to go really quickly. As far as placing reinforcements, all of our turn 2 reinforcements go into the floating reserve. And that's something important to remember, new players. You don't get all that stuff on turn 2. It just goes into the floating reserve, as will all of your Allied reinforcements. If you look at the display here, except the 8th Army units where it says it's going to come into zones S1, S3, S2, and so forth. If it doesn't have that notation, it goes into the floating reserve and you have to land them using the landing mechanics. So how does that work? Well, let's work on, that's going to be a function more of movement, so we're going to go ahead and advance the phase marker down from initial phase to movement phase, and we'll start moving our bits around. I think one of the things I want to do here is I really want to take this knoll. I think this is an important objective to attempt to take. However, I don't really think the Allies have the power to get it. The best I get would be a 2-to-1 result, or 2-to-1 odds. If I use the artillery, that would... Well, let's just look at the table really quickly. If you look at table 2, one of the things I look at as a player is I look at, well, what are the bad things that could happen to me? Okay, that would be bad. That would not be great. I wouldn't call it bad, but it wouldn't be great. This would be a good result, but it doesn't get me the hill. This would be a decent, I would accept this result. I take a step loss, but I would force them off the hill or to do a determined defense, and I would be able to take that hill. This would be a good result. This here would be basically the same as this, except we both take step losses and they retreat. The bottom line is with 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of the 6 results mean I take a step loss. The question is, do I want to do that at this time? So before I start moving things, let's just kind of look at the replacement schedule. We're going to have some replacements start coming in, and those are going to start for the Allies on turn 5. This is the German replacements on the left because Germans go first, then Allies. This is basically a special replacement, and what they can replace involves like your airborne units from the Luftwaffe. You could replace garrisons with it, I believe. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Actually, right here is a good breakdown of what you can use those replacement types. So if it doesn't have, if it's just a box, you can replace engineers, Fallschirmjägers, your reconnaissance unit, your ASUs. That's an important thing to remember. You can replace those with that. And then, of course, infantry and armor. Pretty self-explanatory from there. You're never going to have enough replacements in the game. And the Allied ones start to come in later than the Germans. The Germans seem like they get, both sides get the same amount, by the way. If you factor this all in, they both get the same amount. But the Germans are going to get theirs before the Allies do. So I don't want to bash my teeth against something that is going to cause me a lot of step losses without getting me something really tangible. So this would be an attractive attack if I had my core artillery on board, but we don't have that just yet. So could we bring that on board? Let's examine that. Here is our floating reserve. We can bring 12 stacking points worth of these guys into play this turn. And my initial thought was I'd like to bring in another division, okay? I could bring in this regiment, this understring regiment, and a battalion of tanks. That would be 6 stacking points worth to the U.S. beachheads. Now, I can bring additional Americans into the Commonwealth beachheads, but they come in disrupted. So, I mean, that's not a deal breaker. It's just you should be aware of that. That would preclude an artillery unit from being able to fire. I can also bring in on the British sector this brigade and all 3 artillery. They have 0 stacking points, but for the purpose of this, 0 stacking units are worth 1 stacking point for landing purposes. So bottom line is I can land all the Commonwealth boys and none of them will be disrupted. But when it comes to landing the Americans, it's a little bit more of a tricky choice. Do I want to bring in more hardware as far as tanks and just kind of set up something that makes it hard for the Germans to attack, or do I want to start coming out swinging? I kind of think it's better just to secure the beachhead, push inland as much as I can, and let's not start breaking our teeth on things. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take this particular, I think I'm going to bring in the new units here, and we'll bring these guys maybe up to the hill. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's take this guy here up to the hill. I'm not going to bring in the tank destroyers just yet, and I'll show you why. And then these guys, I could just go ahead and bring out into the open, and they're going to be our shield. This forms a Zoc bond here. Obviously, I can't move into here, sliding in there the next turn because that's a Zoc bond. So these are both Zoc bonds here. So I'm happy with that result. I do need to clear some space on the beachhead, but you know what? I forgot about this. Hold on a second here. I forgot I got a 6 strength unit here. So that'd be 12, 18 to 6, 7, 8. Actually, I can get 3-to-1 odds. Let's try to take that hill. All right, changed my mind. All right, so how are we going to do this? We got 3 stacking points there. Let's go ahead and bring this battalion up there. Obviously, I'm not counting out these movement points because it's not really necessary. This is tactical movement if it's within 2 hexes. I'll put the tanks in there with him. I still don't want to commit those tank destroyers because they can be used to defend something out in the open should it become necessary to do so. All right, do I want to move my artillery up? No, I do not. So that's all we're going to do for that sector just now. We're going to go ahead and take our infantry from, what is this, 45th Division. We're going to land one there, and then we're going to move him down here. Actually, you know what? If I park him here, no, let's go ahead and put him here. Let's go ahead and park him here. He is going to be marked as half effective because of the landing. And we'll go ahead and take the second one here. Now that's all that beachhead can bring in. We'll bring the second guy in and we'll park him here. Actually, let's park him here. That way he's defending both. Both beachheads are well defended now. And he's going to get marked with a half effective. All right. that's what I'm going to do with those guys. I still got one more stacking point to bring in. Do I want to bring in core artillery or do I want to bring in tanks? Tough decision. Brought in the tank destroyers because the tank destroyers could defend that hex. This one might be more important to defend. Should we lose the tanks in this attack here, this stack could be vulnerable out in the open, and it might be necessary to have something that can defend the beachhead. So the artillery we bring in, if we don't move him off the beachhead, he would be able to provide support. So that would give us a 2, 3. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and bring in the core artillery. So we're going to go ahead and mark him just right there. All right, I thought about bringing in tanks, but we'll just go ahead and leave those alone for now. That will be our landing plan for this turn. He should be marked with a marker here. Okay, that's for the American sector. All right, what are we going to do for the Commonwealth? Well, we had some battles that didn't quite go our way here. And we've got some artillery that we need to bring in, but we also need to protect that artillery. So let's go ahead and advance this entire stack, or let's say nearly the entire stack, to here. We're going to leave this stack alone in place, and that's just to defend the beachhead and the artillery that we're going to bring in. Because they're disrupted, they're not going to be able to do anything yet anyways, but we do have tanks kind of guarding this. So if these guys want to if they want to come out and fight this stack in the open here, they're welcome to do that, but it's probably not going to work out terribly well for them. And then we'll go ahead and bring in all 3 of our artillery, the organic artillery for the 56th Division and the 46th Division will both come in and be marked as half effective. Again, we can use them for column shifts. That they would only be prevented from using their column shifts if they were marked as disrupted. And we'll go ahead and bring this guy in and park him 1 hex inland. Let's park him here. And I know I'm shifting some things around here just temporarily because of lack of fingers. There we go. I need to get a tripod and a gimbal. Okay, last thing I'm going to do with the Commonwealth is I'm going to park this guy here, which forms a Zachbahn. So this guy's he's not going to be able to slide around. And we'll take this guy and use tactical movement to move up to here. And I'm going to leave this stack right where he is, and we're not going to attack this turn. I think it's just more important to get the artillery in place. And well, the danger is if it kind of makes him want to attack. If he attacks that and forces him out, then we lose then he could get rid of that city marker. I kind of like the idea of making him attack on what might be less than favorable terms. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that as it is. Right here, we are going to do the big attack against the 15 Panzers. So we'll go ahead and set up for the attack, and we'll do that right away and when we get to the combat phase. Before we do that, I just want to take one more gander at the map, just make sure I'm not missing something. Do I want to move anything up north? Kind of like having the 2 battalions guarding this victory point spot. This guy's a little vulnerable, a step loss, and Salerno now has a new threat on a new flank. But for now, I really can't do much of anything about it until in our next reinforcements. I mean, I can land engineers in here if I have to on the next turn. We've already landed our maximum 12 steps worth of units from the floating reserve, but we still have some tanks, which won't be helpful up there, but the engineers I think might be a useful thing to bring in as a reserve. So I'm inclined just to leave all of that alone, and I think I'm happy with my moves with the exception of this guy. I forgot what I was going to do with him. I was going to put him here. And that means I do have a backup guarding the beachhead should this attack fail. That would make breakthrough combat against the beachhead more difficult. Now, I'm also second guessing, do I actually need to move that guy forward? Would it not make more sense just to leave him in the beachhead? And you know what? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we can do that. Let's just go ahead and do that. We're going to leave them all in the beachhead. That way that whole thing is secure. Both beachheads I feel like are well and secure, and I really like the idea of trying to take that hill, even if it costs me something to do, because possession of that hill will then begin to pry this position loose, and they don't have enough tanks to fight in the open, so they're using that river there to diminish my tank shift. So I think that this is a good attack opportunity. So what we got here is 4, 6, 8, 12, and that's going to be more than enough for the 2-to-1 odds. Now the question is, do I want to have the tanks in the attack or not? I'm going to recheck the rules real quick before I continue, because I think if I could just omit them from the attack, they're immune from any negative results. I don't, the tank shift doesn't really apply in the hill there anyways, and I would prefer not to lose them unnecessarily. So let me check that, and then we'll do the combat. Okay, I've decided what I'm going to do, and no unit in this stack is compelled to attack with the others. So we're going to leave the tanks out of the action. So I'm just going to put them on the bottom of the stack as a reminder. So we have 10, 14, 16, 18 against 6, because the 3 strength is doubled, plus 2 is 8. So that's a 2-to-1 attack just with the organic odds that we have here. To that, we're going to apply a couple of shifts. So let's look at the shifts that we're allowed to take. Tank shift is not going to apply. Air support is not available. We're going to use division artillery. We're also going to use corps artillery. So pay attention to that, division artillery and corps artillery. If you use both, you can get 2 shifts. You can't use 2 divisions or 2 corps, but you can use 1 division and 1 corps. The elite shift does not apply for the attacker here, and for the defender, tank shift does not apply. Air or rain, none of those things apply at the present time. So let's go ahead and roll this heifer out. So we're going to be on the 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1. That's a column that I can live with. So let's see what happens here. 2. Now, if I'd done my original plan, that would not have been a good result. But, you know, bringing those extra units into play, bring us over to a 4-to-1 is a DRX. It means I get to choose which opponent unit takes the step loss. That's a juicy result for me as the ally. So what do I want to take out here? Do I want to take out the tanks? Or do I want to take out a step of infantry that's elite? Being that we're going to be fighting in the hills, I know it might sound wrong for me to do this, but I'm going to take him out so I can deal with tanks later on. So I'm going to take him out. For the Germans, I guess it doesn't really matter. That becomes a 4. 6 goes down to 4. This one goes down to a 1. I think that actually takes away more hitting power to take the 4 down to 1 than the 6 down to a 4. So I'll do it that way. Let's go ahead and do that. Or I could have eliminated one of these. I still think I'm taking away 3 factors by eliminating or by reducing that one. So let's go ahead and do that. And then the DRX means he has to also retreat. So let's both sides lose 1 step. The unit selected is determined by the opposing player and must retreat 2 hexes, become disrupted, or do a determined defense. A determined defense. Let's look at it. What could we get here? We'd have to use artillery to get a plus any kind of modifier, because the elite unit has lost his elite status now. We'd be in the other column. And to get a hold result, would inflict another loss on us. It's not worth taking the extra step loss. So I'm not even going to attempt it. Instead, we'll fall back to the victory location here. Now, if this was a victory location, I would consider that, but it's not. So we're going to go ahead and mark them disrupted and have it at that. These guys get a 2 hexery advance, so we'll go 1. I need to bring somebody in here. Let's think. 1. Let's do it like that. There's 12 there. Obviously, I want that hill. I don't know if I want to get up into here in the open. This guy's going to recover. Probably get away with it for a turn or two. So let's go ahead and maybe try that. Let's go there. I like establishing Zoc bonds. I really do. And this would be 2, 4. One, 2. Yeah, let's do that. This guy goes here, and then the tanks will be. The tanks were not involved, so they can't advance, which is a little unfortunate. But this way, I'm garrisoning that hill. I've got a Zoc bond here. If these guys want to attack the now green unit, they're welcome to do that, but they're going to be halved for attacking across the river. And both these guys get marked as fired. We'll just throw them back into their stack there. So that is how the combat shakes out. Is that the optimal play? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll go ahead now and move into recovery and get rid of all of the little markers that we didn't really have to put down because, geez, this happened so quickly. I don't really kind of feel like it takes more time to put the markers on and off than just remember what you did and don't worry about it. So I think that's all of the allies recovery there. Now the question is, what do I want to do about my fired artillery? Let's go ahead and take the core artillery and bump him back up to an unfired state and spend our only supply to do that. That just makes that artillery available. And there you go. That will be then the end of turn 2. So there you get it. A whole game turn from the campaign game, Salerno 43. And you see how the game kind of flows, the kind of decisions you're going to make. Are these good decisions or not? We'll see as the time goes on. There's a lot more German reinforcements coming into play. The Fallschirmjägers are going to be released next turn. And the beachhead is going to be a little uncomfortable for the Allies. But, because they've taken some losses, but they also brought some new guys on. They're not going to get replacements for a while, but in the meantime, I feel like that was a good trade to be able to open up to some space from the beachhead, push these guys back. Now, there is a vulnerability of attack from this flank. However, the Germans don't have the mobility to exploit that in the following turn, even with the units that are coming up from the south, because of the poor nature of the roads. They're not going to have enough movement points to do anything about that just yet. So I'm happy with that result, and we'll have to see how things progress from here.